Tensions exploded on a dusty Perth back road when muzzle flashes lit the night and a Coffin Cheater sank to his knees, shirt blooming red. Within 24 hours, convoys of patch riders were hurtling east, bound for Melbourne, birthplace of Ned Kelly, vowing to settle scores at the throttle. Cameras tracked the exodus while, in a marble courtroom, two Coffin Cheaters faced contempt charges after stonewalling the Corruption and Crime Commission. Standing rigid in the dock, Troy Merkanti, once ghost, now headline, listened in silence, his stare colder than courtroom glass. Years earlier, the scene was gentler. In suburban Perth, Michael Merkanti repaired worn heels in a cramped workshop, fragrant with glue. He taught his only son discipline, patience, and care for honest craft. But young Troy flinched at stillness. The metallic hiss of compressors meant nothing beside the distant rumble of custom pipes. He chased noise, speed, and awe. By 12, he stole petrol to race battered trail bikes across vacant lots. At 15, he discovered fists could purchase the deference school never offered. Respect, he decided, was prize coin, and breaking rules was the mint for a restless soul. In 1993, a nightclub in Bunbury supplied the forge. A spilled drink, an insult, and 20 seconds later, glass shards glittered beneath strobing lights, while Troy's knuckles dripped. Newspapers called it savage, but outlaw recruiters called it promise. He prospected for the Coffin Cheaters, an exclusive brotherhood that weighed loyalty by volume of blood parted. The 90s became trial by fire, door security, pub brawls, and territorial skirmishes against the Mongol mob. Northbridge's geisha bar was his classroom, baseball bats and pool cues his curriculum. Each scar added interest to the reputation he banked. Soon patches covered bruises and pride. January 2005 proved pivotal. At Metro City nightclub rivals Scorpion Boys crashed a cheaters gathering. Knives flashed, Troy emerged slashed across rib and thigh. Yet 3 days later, Nabil Dog, the man who cut him, was shot 5 times outside a kebab shop. Police suspected retaliation, but collected only shrugs. Inside club culture, the equation was clear. Hurt us, we double the pain. Troy's willingness to bleed and to make others bleed accelerated his rise. By 2007, his name traveled faster than sirens, and undercover units logged his every exit, fearing the next flashpoint. Reputation, like wildfire, fed on whispered exaggeration daily. That crack arrived in February 2008. Paul Ringo Pellegro, a senior cheater, invited Troy to celebrate his 10-year patch at a goat farm near Moore River. The party was a trap. 12 sworn brothers beat him with pipes, stripped his jacket, and left him fractured in the mud. His sin was treason. Rumors said he had shared routes and stash house maps with the club's enemies. In outlaw life, theft can be forgiven, but betrayal cannot. Hospital orderlies fixed bones. Hatred fused them harder. Exile became ignition for a new ambition. He vowed retaliation measured in territory, not apologies, ever again. Months later, patched wounds still raw, Troy partnered briefly with South Australian bruiser Frank Kondo and raised a Perth chapter of the Finns Motorcycle Club. When Eastern support evaporated, he seized the remnants and pointed them at his former comrades. Kwinana Motorplex saw the reckoning. On an April night in 2010, drag strip lights glared off chrome as muzzle fire erupted. 46 casings, 2 evac choppers, and no witness statements. The Finns had arrived. Detectives multiplied search warrants, but Troy relocated stash houses overnight, turning pursuit into attrition. The streets tasted new fear. Perth tabloids christened him the comeback king overnight. Troy led less by volume than by calculation. In backyard fire pits, he soothed veteran egos. At factory gyms, he shouted cadence at teenage prospects. Around accountants laundering club cash through espresso bars, he smiled like a harmless tradesman. He paid rent when members lost jobs, fronted bail at midnight, and buried the fallen with brass bands and chrome coffins. In return, he demanded absolute obedience. Rivals adjusted or vanished. To police analysts, he resembled a CEO more than a street brawler, moving assets, delegating violence, and insulating himself behind layers of debtors who worshipped him. Fear, loyalty, and cash intertwined. But the machine began chewing its maker. Tammy Kingdom, partner and silent casualty of 15 years, finally sought refuge in 2013. Her x-rays and diaries exposed years of beatings. The same season, Troy astonished Australia by patching the Finns over to the Mongols, importing a logo infamous for war with the Hells Angels. Media thundered. Legislators drafted anti-bikie bills. Amid the uproar, Troy faced domestic assault charges stretching back a decade. His own mother testified against him. Mid-trial, he switched to a guilty plea, calculating damage control. Judge Simon Stone called him cowardly, sentenced 6 years, 10 months behind razor wire. Casuarina prison muffled engines but not influence. Troy declined therapy, labeling it weakness, yet accepted a job in metalwork where he traded favors for loyalty. Coded letters flowed through visitors. A smuggled phone logged midnight calls, arranging debt collections outside the walls. Younger inmates treated him as curriculum. Meanwhile, the Mongols fractured and regrouped, invoking his name during sit-downs. Law enforcement task forces mapped associations, but lacked admissible proof. The calendar turned. 2014, 2015, 2016. Each year cemented his legend among those who romanticize endurance more than virtue. By 2019, parole unlocked his cell. He walked out smiling beneath a gray winter sky. Freedom proved conditional. The Liquor Commission barred him from every licensed venue for 5 years. Associating with patch bikers without permission risked immediate return to custody. Police placed drones over his cul-de-sac, and license plate cameras pinged whenever his Land Cruiser merged onto a freeway. Still, late-night visitors, unpatched, hoods up, slipped through for whispered strategy. Some young criminals, dazzled by the mythology, sought apprenticeships. Others deemed him radioactive. Troy's response was silence, an asset sharper than any blade. Even quiet became choreography, each absence interpreted as omen by watchers. Talkback radio debated whether notoriety or police obsession kept him in headlines every week. In 2023, detectives thought they finally caught him. A phone seized during a routine traffic stop allegedly contained disturbing footage. Charges of sexual penetration without consent followed. Courtroom drama built until the key complainant vanished overseas. Evidence was ruled inadmissible. Troy walked, collecting nearly $5,000 in costs. 8 months later, fresh allegations arose after a dawn raid in May 2024. Forensic teams sliced floorboards, hunted guns, and found cryptic letters mentioning Kelly country. Again, the case unraveled. Witnesses recanted, lawyers gloated, and taxpayers footed compensation. Public anger boiled. Opposition politicians cited him as proof anti-gang laws lacked bite entirely. Now 56, Troy Merkanti balances on a fraying tightrope between folklore and indictment. Federal officers claim an airtight brief on drug trafficking and tax fraud is weeks from filing. Rival clubs, some led by men he once mentored, whisper about overdue payback. Community groups petition for surveillance orders, while true crime podcasts romanticize his escapades. Troy appears at none of these stages. He mows lawns, waves to neighbors, and files meticulous tax returns. Yet every idle rev from a passing Harley tightens shoulders across the street, because legend says reckoning rides behind that sound. No one believes his retirement is permanent. What comes next may depend on whose engine fires first. Federal agents sharpen warrants, club enforcers oil ancient rifles, journalists practice obituaries. Troy meets conjecture with that same marble-cold stare he wore in court. He survived betrayal, prison, and a decade of legal ambushes. The statistician's curve says luck expires, but folklore insists some men ride between raindrops. Perhaps a jury will finally anchor him. Perhaps bullets on the Hume Highway will. Until then, convoys thunder toward Melbourne, and each roaring gear change sounds like prophecy. Reporters watch, pens poised for a single misfire to rewrite the legend at last.